Hello, welcome to my channel. I did a review on the Vittoria Mazza tire, which is on my Salsa Rustler. But when I bought that tire, I also bought some Specialized Butcher tires because I wanted to kind of compare because they're, similar purpose tire. So yeah, this is the Specialized Butcher. Again, this is the trail rated version, not the super heavy duty downhilly one. I mean, this is on my titanium Ti Hayduke. So I decided in this video I'm going to kill two birds with one stone because it's not just going to be about the tire. One of the important things about tires is how they're designed to handle braking. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about braking and how you properly brake, and I'm going to do it while I'm riding the bike. And probably the number one thing I'm going to call out is, do you know which brake is which? Which brake is your front brake? Which brake is your rear brake on your bike? Because if you don't know that, if that's not ingrained in your memory, and when you apply the brakes, it's pretty dangerous actually. So know which one is which. And here in the United States, most bikes come set up with the front brake on the left and with the rear brake on the right. But you still want to know and test, because sometimes they're switched. People that ride motorcycles, they tend to put the front brake on the right. Over in Europe, they tend to put the front brake on the right, things like that. So know which way your brakes are set up and get it ingrained in your memory. Again, most bikes here in the US, the front brake's going to be on the left. Really important, because if you give too much front brake in certain situations, it's going to cause you to crash, and crash really bad. All right, let's go hit the trail. So if you look at tire treads, you'll notice they kind of have this scooping part, and for many years I always thought, oh, this should be the other way, because if you think about the tire at the bottom, it's going to be going that way to get traction. And you'd think it would be for traction, but actually it's for braking. These scoops with the straight sidewalls of the knobs are to help slow you down better, and then on the front side are the ramps, and as the tire comes around, the ramps are going to get to the ground first. The ramps are there for save on wear and tear, and also for faster rolling resistance, and these hard edges are for braking. So that's generally how all tires are designed, and it's deceiving because when you see it from the top, it looks one way, but everything's actually the opposite when it's down on the bottom. Cool, let's hit the trail. Sweet, this is Hall Road. This is actually not a good way to test tires, because I'm basically on Hero Dirt right now. If you haven't heard of Hero Dirt, that's like the best traction conditions out there. We've had a good amount of rain and it's dried up, but the dirt is still tacky and gives you a lot of traction. But I've been riding the Specialized Butcher tire for a while on this bike, so I have a pretty good assessment of it, and it's actually a really good tire, believe it or not. I was kind of surprised, but it ranks right up there with the Minion DHF and right up there with the Vittoria Mazza that I've been testing on my other bike. So when I'm thinking between the three tires, it's really hard for me to pick which one would be better than the others. I think they're all pretty closely matched. The one thing I do like about this particular Specialized tire is its weight. It's really light. So the setup I have on this bike is a Specialized Butcher in the front, and the tire I just talked about, the way it's designed, was the Maxxis Recon. So I have the Butcher up front, the Recon in the back, and I really like that combo. The Recon is proving to be a really good back tire. I had one on the front for a while, did not like it for hard cornering. Whoa, technical, trying to talk and do technical rock stuff. Whoop, missed that. This is a trail called Grizzly, and it's definitely grizzly if you don't keep your momentum up. You get hung up like I am right now. So yeah, that requires focus. It's something I do not have when I am talking and doing a video. I have gotten through there before, and believe it or not, my favorite bike to get through that really technical rock stuff is my low side. It's easier to hop around and control through that stuff. So Recon on the rear, Butcher on the front. Really good combo. I like it. And on my Wrestler, I have that Mazda tire on the front and a Recon on the rear. That bike, I might want something a little more aggressive on the rear. I haven't decided yet, but it's probably likely. So this Butcher is a really good tire. Keep in mind the tread style between the DHF, the Butcher, and the Mazda are all very similar. So, and they also are all dual compound tires, so they should work pretty close to the same. But the Specialized wins the weight battle in being the lightest of the three. And if you know me and what I've talked about in the past, I like lighter outer rotational weight. And so far this summer, as I've been riding this Butcher, I haven't had any issues with it, even on gnarly rocky stuff. So I'm gonna jump to talking about braking. The reason why I'm combining these two is because good tires, proper braking technique, are essential for being, you know, a faster, safer, more precise rider, so on and so forth. I'm going to be doing a trail here soon called Bobsled, which is a downhill fast run with big berms, a couple of jumps, and good tires and knowing how to brake and having good brakes is super important. One of the most important things about brakes is knowing how to modulate them. So it's similar to like a car brake. When you go to slow down in a car, you don't just dynamite the brake pedal and skid to a stop. Like, you gradually depress the pedal and slow the car down and modulate the pedal so the car comes to a stop. You do the same thing on mountain bikes with discs. Disc brakes have really good modulation, and the better quality of the disc brake, the better the modulation. So modulation, understanding it, being good at it is really important, and that also goes hand in hand with knowing which brake is your front and which is your rear. So on my bikes, the left is always the front and the right is always the rear. But make sure you know which yours is. Most bikes are set up that way, but like I said at the intro, in the UK and people who ride motorcycles sometimes like to switch them so the front brake is on the right. So I'm going to start the climb. Oh, it's the wrap around and then the climb. You get the bobsled right here. Whew, fun. So you want to get most of your slowing down power from your front brake, because that's where most of it's going to come from. Due to the weight distribution of a bicycle and the fact that you're behind the front axle, you can put more pressure on the front brake than you can the rear without locking up the brake or skidding. But I say that cautiously. Like, develop into a habit of that and don't just go out and try it. One of my recommendations is to go out and ride with just your front brake and get a good hang of how to use it. If I was told I could only have one brake on a bicycle, I would say I want my front. The rear brake is going to help also, so you want to apply both. You're just going to apply more pressure on the front and less on the rear. There are some exceptions to that rule, and that is if you're on a steep descent and your front end of the bike is pitched down, then you want to be really careful with any front braking. For less experienced riders, I recommend that you only use the back brake, and for more experienced riders, use light front brake, because you're going to have a better feel of how not to lock up your front brake. And a lot of times, steep descent stuff, you don't want to use the brakes at all. You can come into it at a slower speed and then just roll down whatever the steep thing is without your brakes, and then when you get to the bottom, you know, and I'm talking something like a downhill rock garden thing, or something that's relatively short. Obviously, if you're going on a long downhill, you want to be using your brakes to maintain your speed. Okay, this is Bobsled. I won't need to brake a ton on this because they rebuilt the berms really big and we're on hero dirt. But if and when I do brake, I use both brakes and I give the front brake a tiny bit more than I do the rear brake. But I only brake when the bike is straight and upright. I don't like to brake when I'm in a hard lean. I will sometimes, but then it's just barely feathering the brakes when I do that. And I only do that if I over predicted my speed for the corner. Alright, so I'm gonna hit bobsled here and have fun on my titanium Esker Hayduke with the new butcher tire on there. I mean, it's not new, but it's newish. But this is a fun run, so I'm just not going to talk and I'm going to do it. And definitely dropping the seat for this whole run. Now we're getting into the meat of it. I said I wasn't going to talk when I was talking. brakes off. Yep. So what was interesting is because I was talking about brakes and paying attention when I did bobsled, is I do this thing. I have no idea if anybody else ever does it. I've heard nobody talk about it before, but I do this thing that I'm gonna call mock braking. And what it is I pull the levers in when I'm going into those turns, but I don't apply the brakes, but I get them probably so the pads are just touching. I believe the reason I do that was really to think about how my brain works, is there's a space of nothingness between no brake and starting to apply the brake. And by doing this mock braking thing, I take out that space. Now, if any of you are shooters out there, it's a trick you actually use in shooting a firearm, is you pull the trigger. I have a Glock, and when I'm gonna fire, I pull the trigger and take that extra space out, and then and you can really feel it. Like, you can feel like where it's empty space, and then you can feel where it's actually starting to engage the mechanism. Same with mountain bike brakes. And by doing that, I'm gonna have a cleaner shot because I have that extra space where I might pull the muzzle up some or something like that. So same thing with bike brakes. And again, other same thing, if you do shoot, you squeeze the trigger. You don't pull the trigger, you squeeze it. Same with mountain bike brakes. Kind of funny, I just made that correlation now, but I realize I take out that extra space sometimes when I know that I might need to brake. And I may never actually apply the brakes. I just do it because if in an instant I realize I need the brake, I have that braking power right there, already ready to be engaged. So to recap on the brakes, know which brake is your front brake. Extremely important. Second most important thing, know how to modulate your brakes, so you're not always what I call death grabbing them and locking up your brakes, especially your back brake, because skidding doesn't really do you any good, and it's not good for the trails. And if you use your front brake properly and get most of your stopping power at the front brake, you shouldn't have to skid your back brake. So front brake is key to having better bike control. And third thing is, don't apply your brake, your front brake, when you're at like extreme turning angles. And if you do it very lightly. So, and remember the 80-20 ratio, 80% front brake, 20% rear. That's going to be your braking power. Most of it's going to be on the front. Cool. I don't think I've ever talked about guns before on this channel.
So there you have it.
I really appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace. Oh, you can guess what those grips are. I will be impressed. Then it means you are into watching a lot of YouTube videos, especially about biking.